Okay, hey, welcome back from the coffee break. Now that we all have a good fresh shot of caffeine in us, I don't have to worry about anybody passing out. So that's one of the advantages of starting right after the break. Anyway, my name's Dan O'Farrell. Forward. There we go. That's my mug. I work for a company called iGel. We're actually headquartered in Germany, in a town called Bremen, Germany. We've developed a pretty large U.S. presence, however. The U.S. headquarters is in the Bay Area, so my home base office is in San Francisco. And iGel, I-G-E-L, in case you're curious, that's the word that stands for, it represents hedgehog in German. So we give away a lot of these cute little stuffed hedgehogs at all of our trade shows. And in German, you call it eagle. But that created a lot of confusion, so we just call it iGel. Speaking of confusion, no. So main theme here is, it's kind of funny, a lot of what we do in product marketing, a lot of the disciplines that we follow, a lot of the attributes that you want to exhibit in a product marketing role, I equate them a lot to what I learned as a kid from my parents. Things like listening, right? Diligence, persistence, being flexible. A lot of this job has to do with listening and working well with others, right? In product marketing, we sit at this intersection between sales and product management and engineering. So we're kind of like an arbiter working between those organizations. I tell my people on my team that we are a service organization to sales. As sales does, that's how we measure ourselves. Now certainly, we can run analytics on assets. We can see how many downloads and clicks and all that kind of stuff to be really specific about analytics on pieces. But if the sales organization is doing well, hopefully that reflects on us. And if the sales organization is struggling, I take that personally, because it means something is amiss in the way I'm doing my job. Because I had one old boss, I won't name this guy, this is a little bit crude. He said, Dan, your job is to make it easy for a dumb salesperson to sell to a dumb customer. I say that a little bit differently nowadays, but that was the old days. But I think one of the keys here is understand challenges. Recognize challenges and be able to understand them. Earlier today, Parag was talking about empathy. And I think the key word here is empathy. You have to be able to establish empathy and understand what's keeping people up at night, right? An example I want to give is what happened at the company I'm currently with, and this happened long before I joined them. iGel's been in business, believe it or not, for 25 years. In the last 4 or 5 years, there's been a resurgence where the company is now gaining share like crazy within the US after having no presence whatsoever. And one of the main reasons for that was, historically, the company built these cool little boxes. You may have heard the phrase thin client. You'll see these in hospitals. You'll see them in banks. You'll see them in schools and labs and in lecture halls. Oftentimes, you'll see them in retail organizations, either at the point of sale or in the back office, or on manufacturing floors. These are specialized little devices that don't contain any information on them. Right? They present a user experience using software from the likes of VMware or Citrix or Microsoft, yet all the processing and all the data is actually happening in the data center. So it's almost like watching a video of something happening elsewhere, but you're experiencing it locally with a keyboard and a mouse and a display. So iGel had been known for that, building these little boxes, and primarily regionally, like throughout Europe. And the challenge for iGel was to say, look, people really like our product, not because of the little boxes, because these devices, look, everybody uses the same chips, right? Everybody uses the same processors and the same DRAM and all that kind of thing. It's really the software, right? People love the ease of use through the management console. They love the fact that you can take the software and either run it on one of these little boxes or drop it onto a Lenovo PC or a Dell laptop. So really, we had to figure out, how do we change the perception of a box vendor to a software company? And first we had to understand what's happening in the world and where are things going, and what does our customer care about? We're classic business to business, and our customer is the IT organization within a company of just about any size, from a global 500 to a company of 300 people. But what we noticed and what we're learning is that more and more organizations are looking toward this cloud model. And we've been hearing about cloud, cloud, cloud now for the last 10 years. But it really is starting to happen. The large enterprises are actually running a lot of the workloads in the cloud. They're working with AWS, Amazon Web Services, or Microsoft Azure, or with regional cloud providers. So they're trying to offload a lot of this data center stuff and all the IT overhead needed to manage it, placing it elsewhere. And I would suggest that, hopefully I'm still around. In 20 years, people will start saying, remember when companies used to build data centers? Remember back then? It's like, how silly is that? So what's happening is these people, these users, are like us. We're on the road. I don't know if you were like me this morning. I had a conference call. I did some stuff. We all have our laptops with us. We're bringing our work with us. We're highly mobile. Yet a lot of us, if we have a laptop, if it's the company's laptop, it's got an asset tag on it, right? The information on that hard disk is not yours. It belongs to the company. The data that you're accessing, the apps that you are running don't belong to you. They belong to the company. So what companies are trying to do is how do we support this model of high mobility and cloud access while still protecting our data and making sure people access the apps that they're entitled to and perhaps more importantly, not get to the stuff that they're not supposed to mess with. Because I'm in marketing. I don't see the ops applications. They're not loaded on my laptop. I can't get to that stuff. I don't have the engineering stuff. I have the stuff that's outlined in my Active Directory profile. And that's the challenge. So we had to figure out how do we move from a hardware company to a software company that appeals to these customers of ours who are working with the hypermobile user, who wants to be like us. Maybe you're in Starbucks or at a hotel, you want to still be able to get your work done. Whoa. A little entertainment there. I'm going to stand over here. That could have gotten really ugly. Thank God for my cat quick reflexes. Anyway. All right, so the challenge is, I thought there was a reason this was here. The challenge is that the IT team has to protect the corporate assets, right? They've got these asset tag devices that this guy's using, and they have to make sure that he or she is happy and they can get their work done and still adjust to their lifestyle. So, empathy, understand the world that your customers live in. The best way to do this, and it's old-fashioned, is to sit down and talk with them. So my team and I, we invite ourselves. We developed a really good relationship with sales, and we have built up credibility, where they're happy to bring us in on sales calls. And then we meet with them every quarter in what we call a quarterly business review, where we all get together with sales. They report on how things are going on in their region, and we talk to them as well. So there's a lot of personal communication. And that's how we understand what the challenges are, because we want to understand what's keeping this guy up at night, right? Be empathetic, figure out what's happening in their life. And if this is an IT administrator, he's worried about things like constant backups of Windows 10, right? He's worried about data availability. He's worried about security. And what we want to do is transform him into someone who sleeps really soundly, like this guy. A couple of years ago, I read a list. I'm kind of a dog lover. And it was a list of the best watchdogs from 1 to like 85. And the English bulldog is the worst watchdog on the planet. They've been known to sleep through like 3 alarm fires. So we don't want the guy to be so comatose as that dog, but we do want him to sleep soundly. Now, more importantly, right, if we're a B2B, we're selling to IT directors and these endpoint managers, we need to know who their customers are, and their customers are changing as we speak. The profile of the workforce is changing because like this kid, they're growing up in a world that's vastly different from the one I grew up in. I'm not going to tell you how long ago it was when I was this kid's age. But they play in the cloud now. They do everything in the cloud, right? They'll be up in the room yelling and screaming because they're collaborating and playing with some kid in Ohio, another kid in India, and they're playing these group games, right? They shop in the cloud. You got that cool sweatshirt in the cloud. They socialize in the cloud. And they expect to work in the cloud. When they come out through university, they graduate, they've already grown up in a world where everything's at their fingertips and it's all cloud provided. So if you don't give them an environment that's conducive to that, you know what? They're going to go work someplace else. And then this is going to be basically the profile of the workforce going forward over the next decade. So what we figured out is if we're going to position ourselves as a software company, we better be appealing to these people and the companies that are hiring these guys as well. So that went into it. Tell a good story. One thing that I really like about product marketing, it's the reason I've kind of ended up here, and I think it was Parag was talking about earlier how we all had different journeys to these jobs. I actually started out, believe it or not, as a developer at IBM. Then I was an SE at HP. I got into product management at Sun right before the Oracle acquisition. And I just kept migrating more and more toward working with the field and with customers because it's fun. And I like to write, and I like to tell stories. Now the key with the stories, it's got to be feasible, it's got to be plausible, and it's got to be provable. So it's not like you see a marketing person talking, you know they're lying, right? We can't, you've got to have meat behind the story. But most good stories start with a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? And in the case of the end, we talk about where we're going in the future. And a lot of these stories start from humble beginnings. In the case of Igel, as an example, we started out in a little attic in Bremen, Germany. Right now, we're taking market share, sizable chunks of market share throughout the world, especially in North America. And I'm not going to give you a big tutorial on our products. This is not a product description. But the company is doing well in terms of how we positioned ourselves. And our future picture that we envision, this is the vision that we tell our customers, is our goal is to be the on-ramp of choice operating system to drop on your endpoint to access AWS desktops, or to access Azure, or to access virtualized apps from any cloud, because we see that's where the world is going. This is for businesses, corporations. So for example, HP, right, the classic story, they started out in a garage in Palo Alto, California, right, back in the 70s. Another humble beginning story was Dell, Michael Dell in his dorm room at the University of Texas in Austin. And then likewise, you know, we started with, first of all, the headquarters was a small, modest building in Bremen, Germany. The first 3 engineers were in a town called Augsburg outside of Munich. This was 25 years ago. They're still with the company, by the way. And we still have an office in Munich, outside of Munich, but it's just much a bigger facility. So where we've come from there is we're now right near the Salesforce Tower in San Francisco. We're over 100 people in the US, and we're like, it's a pretty big building. We're like down there someplace. We're literally like in their shadow. But it's cool to be, you know, right next to Salesforce. I mean, if you think about the influence of the cloud, the 2 biggest towers in that area are the LinkedIn building and the Salesforce Tower. Like 15 years ago, they didn't exist, those buildings, and they've literally changed the skyline of San Francisco. The Transamerica Tower, if you've looked at older pictures, really defined San Francisco, and now it's almost lost in the weeds. You can hardly see it anymore. And it's all because of this movement of apps and workloads from your traditional PC into the cloud. So that's a big part of our story. And we're up in an attic in the building that we're in. So there's this thing going on with attics. I'm not quite sure what it is, but anyway. The middle of the story is where we are today. So we're the fastest growing company, what we call end user computing. So we're taking advantage of that as we tell our story and position ourselves to say, look, there's this resurgence in companies moving apps and workloads to the cloud, and they're trying to figure out what's the best way to get to them for their corporate asset tagged PCs and laptops and desktop models. Real simple, right? Know and communicate your purpose. So be able to tell a really super simple story so that anybody can understand it. What's cool about product marketing, right, is it's you get the opportunity to have this, the classic push-pull between the right and left brain, right? Your left brain is the more the analytical, the part that understands the product, the part that works closely with product managers to really understand what this thing does. Because I would submit that you can't be very good at product marketing if you don't have some of that in you, because you have to understand what it is you're writing about. You have to understand the story. The other cool part, though, is you can kind of involve the right brain, which is the creative part. So if you like to communicate and you like to write and you like to tell the story, it's great. And not everybody has these talents, right? That's why I think this is a fairly unique community of people, Because typically most people will migrate in one direction completely or the other, because that's how most people are. So we're all a little bit kind of weird. So here's the story. Here's an example of a simple story. We can help you save money because you can take our software, drop it on your concurrent PCs, make them run another 4 or 5 years. That you have to buy new ones. You save a ton of money that way. Save a lot of money in operating your endpoints because you don't have to keep rebooting Windows all the time and loading Windows on all of your devices. Just drop this thing called IGIL-OS, save a lot of money in operations, go from a staff of 6 people full-time to 1 person part-time because it's so easy to manage. And then finally, security. So that's it. Make your security better because you're moving Windows from the edges into the data center where, by the way, you have automatic backups. You've got failure. You've got security already designed in instead of having hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of Windows devices all over the place, each of which being a target for hackers and malware. And at the same time, okay, so yeah, we're kind of brainy. We like to think we are anyway through innovation, but really, we have to make these people happy. Remember that customer that we were talking about earlier. He's our customer, but they're his customers. So we have to understand what he cares about. We have to empathize with him, and we have to empathize with those people, right? He wants to be able to control what they can and can't do because they're using asset tag devices that belong to the company, but they need the freedom to be able to work as and where they wish. So that's all built into our messaging. So understand what your key, who you are, right? What's your purpose? People say that all the time. And we converge, and by the way, this was done at the top management level. There was a question earlier today about, you're working in product marketing, and then all of a sudden the exec looks at it and says, I don't know what this is. So what's nice about the way we work at IGIL is I'm tied in with the CMO, who's the CEO of North America. He's my boss. I have a seat at the table when the execs are talking about things like positioning and messaging. And that goes straight from me to my team. So I know exactly what's going on up there, and this is what we worked on as a team. So we came up with this message, and this is it. Very simple story. Don't be an island. So in the B2B type of businesses, typically what you offer is just one part of an overall solution. Right? It's an end-to-end solution from the user to whatever they're trying to access, where they're trying to get to. And don't be an island. Work with partner companies like Dell, like IBM, like all these other guys like Cisco and VMware, and all these guys who provide the ultimate end-to-end solution. We are one part of the cog in the machine, but work really well with them, get integrated, certify and test so that your customers can be confident that when they build a solution or a reseller partner, right? I mean, a big part of the reseller partner's value is building solutions that come from multiple companies, right? Work well with other companies, make sure that you've got very strong interconnects and protocol support and all that kind of stuff so that you can just be dropped into an environment and people can be confident that it's going to work. So we're nothing without these companies. All we are is a piece, but by working well with them, we can make it really easy for our customers to integrate us into their environments. So a really important part of the message is make sure that whatever you're offering integrates and works really well with all the other technologies and products within that ecosystem. And then once you've established these relationships, play really well. Play really well with your partners. Create co-branded collateral. Understand each other's stories. Integrate your stories together so that when people go to a website or click on a campaign and download an asset, it's not just you talking about what makes your product so great. It's you showing that you work with others to give them a great end-to-end solution. So working with other companies, and creating co-branded assets, making sure your stories meld really well with each other. So there's a lot of, kind of grace goes into this to be able to work really well. You got to play well with your friends in the playground, right? So we work really well with these companies. In fact, some of these companies at times will compete with them. But we don't care and they don't care because in this area where we're providing this technology to allow people to get to clouds, we're complementary, and they know that. Like a company like Dell is huge. We work with those guys. IBM, VMware. There are parts of those companies that would literally compete with our product. But the people that we work with, they don't care because we're helping them. Looks a little, when I looked at this, looks a little excessive. So we're big on video. Having said that, there's an awful lot of these talking head videos. So we're actually migrating away from that. But we've got a lot of videos. And because it's just so easy. The world today, people just don't want to read. I think I read like you've got 8 seconds to grab somebody's attention. These videos are all up like 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes. And it's not us telling you why, it's them as customers and partners telling you why to work with us. So leverage video as much as you can. It's just so easy to consume. People prefer it. And the days of the 14-page white paper, thank God, are over. I hated writing those things. So yeah, leverage video. And by the way, we have a YouTube channel, of course, and then you can drop any of these from our resources part of our website. Be social. So we do a lot on both Twitter and LinkedIn. And we've got a pretty strong community of followers on both of those platforms. We have a Facebook page, but we've discovered that LinkedIn and Twitter are really the primary platforms for getting your word out from a social perspective. And we use a tool called Everyone Social, where literally everybody in the company has the ability. We load the latest assets, and they can all start posting and commenting, tweeting, dropping in on their LinkedIn conversations. And it's just a great way to get the world to understand who you are. In fact, before I joined the company, I kept noticing them on LinkedIn. I just kept seeing them and seeing them and seeing them. And it's like, there's something going on over there, right? So you can create this aura of coolness. It's like a cool factor. And being just constantly out there with good stuff. You want to make sure you're sharing decent information. You don't want to throw garbage out there. But we in product marketing, we create a lot of assets, right? And it's a great, as a product marketer, it's very satisfying for me that when my team and I create something, we've got people throughout the company blasting it all over the place. Great exposure. There's our stuffed hedgehog. That's a dog. This thing's probably a goner in about 5 minutes, but anyway, it's like my dog was. And then support your community. Another place where you can create lots of buzz and really tap into from a marketing and product marketing perspective is if you've got a community for your business, a page where your customers, your enthusiasts can go to converse, maybe look things up in a knowledge base. And we've got a huge community of avid, very enthusiastic followers who will talk about their implementations of the technology, tricks and tips that they've learned. Hey, what's in the latest release? Look it up in the knowledge base. There's all kinds of side conversations that go on out there. And we actually tap into that. So if we want to do a webcast, we'll invite the community because we've got this, we know that they're customers. The problem with webcasts, right, oftentimes is you're trying to recruit people to register. And the registrations are probably more important than the attendees because now that you've got the registration, you can reach out to them and get them. But the problem is now with the GDPR and just most of us who abhor emails from anything but within our company, if you get like a 3 to 5% hit rate, you're doing really, really well. The nice thing about tapping into a community is that they're already tied in with you. They're enthusiasts already. So now when you market out to them, especially if you're looking to do repeat business, follow-on business to sell them more product, they're out there and you can have a really well-attended webcast just out to the community. And on our community, right, they can do all kinds of things. They can do polling, we ask them questions, we can tell them about upcoming events, all kinds of activity out there for them. So a lot of people spend a lot of time out there, probably to the detriment of their companies. But, and we get guys who give these great, suggestions and, feedback for us. It continues to grow. It's over 3,000 strong after starting out with like 5 people. And it's another way of doing kind of like we heard earlier today. It was either Angelia or Parag were talking about a customer advisory board or a customer advisory council. This is almost like a customer advisory council in a box out in your community. because these are people who use your products and have all kinds of strong opinions either way on it. Brutally honest, but really good. It's a great way to get feedback. By the way, when I was at Dell, we were calling it a customer advisory board, and they told us we had to change it to a customer advisory council. Because with the word board at the end of it, some people expect shares of stock. So just something to think about. And then finally, be grateful, right? I think product marketing is a real cool job. I enjoy it. I feel very, happy and lucky to be doing what I do. And maybe it's not me saying it, but I heard one person say once, this was like a couple months ago, everybody is 2 really bad breaks from being homeless. You might think, oh, not me. Everybody's 2 bad breaks from being homeless. So if you're working for a company with great people, products, and plans, it's fulfilling work, you've got great customers, enthusiastic people, just, appreciate that. And what we talk about at IGEL is we call it this servant heart philosophy. It's the culture. Culture within a company is defined by how people behave. The behavior you see between individuals up and down the food chain, that reflects the culture. And what's really cool is that our CEO talks about this. Disadvantage yourself to help your peers, the people you work with, to help your partners, and especially your customers. And that defines you as a customer-centric organization if you're willing to do that. So when we interview people, when they come in, yep, I hope they're smart. I hope they've got the right skill set. But we think about this when we interview people to work for our company. So on that note, to summarize, how do we go from being a hardware company to a software company? We looked at what was happening. We empathized with our customers. We empathized with their customers. We crafted a great story with a good beginning, a great middle where we are right now, with a vision of what the end should be. And right now, it's funny, because now people say, oh, you're a software company. I hear you're out of the hardware business. And we're not. We still make really good hardware, but now we have to index back a little bit. I just dropped a blog post 2 weeks ago talking about our latest hardware. So it's almost like we were too successful. Now people think we don't do hardware at all anymore, but we do. So that's an example of how you can move from one perception to another. It doesn't happen overnight. It took a couple of years, actually. But just a few things to think about. Anyway, thanks. That's it for me. I'm glad I didn't get hurt when I fell off the stage.